Marit Ayin has always occupied that delicate halakhic space where appearances matter, not because appearances define reality, but because they shape how people understand and interact with the world. In earlier centuries, the classic examples were simple. Almond milk cooked with meat-kneaded almond shells on top, or a fish dish cooked in dairy sauce had to be served with its tail visible. These were small gestures, almost symbolic, meant to signal clearly that nothing improper was happening. But as food technology accelerates, Marit Ayin is stepping into a far more complex and interesting terrain. Foods today can mimic the appearance, aroma, melt, and behavior of dairy or meat more faithfully than ever before. And that raises natural questions. When does resemblance create confusion? And how can communities adopt practical steps that keep halakhic clarity without stifling innovation? What stands out in the contemporary conversation is that Marit Ayin is being addressed with far more flexibility than in the past. Poskim generally recognize that consumer norms evolve. When almond milk became common, the old fears of confusion faded. Today, when plant-based milks fill supermarket shelves and vegan cheeseburgers appear on mainstream menus, the assumption that dairy always implies cow's milk no longer holds. Many rabbis now argue that widespread familiarity with alternatives reduces the halakhic pressure surrounding Marit Ayin. Instead of maintaining rigid rules, communities can shift toward thoughtful, visible cues that reinforce transparency without discouraging technological progress. Labeling is the first and most powerful of these cues. Clear kosher certifications already communicate crucial information, but beyond that, products that look like dairy but are pareve can be labeled prominently as non-dairy, pareve cheese, plant-based, or fermented dairy-free proteins. Many food producers are already moving in this direction, recognizing that consumers want clarity. Halakhic authorities see these labels not as burdens but as tools, signposts that make it easy for both observant Jews and the broader public to understand what they're purchasing. In settings where precision fermented dairy becomes common, additional markings like PF dairy-free protein or non-animal dairy could become standard, rooting halakhic transparency in everyday packaging. Presentation plays an equally important role. In communal settings, synagogues, schools, Shabbat meals, catered events, serving dairy-like foods alongside meat dishes can raise questions unless the context signals that the food is pareve. One of the simplest and most effective solutions is visual designation. A small sign on a buffet table reading pareve cheese sauce or non-dairy ice cream eliminates ambiguity in seconds. Even in home settings, hosts often announce briefly, almost casually, that a creamy sauce or dessert is non-dairy. Such comments are not halakhic performances. They are practical gestures that create comfort, transparency, and trust. Restaurants and kosher establishments already demonstrate how smoothly this can work. Fleishik restaurants routinely serve plant-based creamers, vegan desserts, and now, more frequently, precision-fermented dairy alternatives. In these places, signage inside the menu or on the item description accomplishes the same halakhic clarity once achieved by placing almond shells on a pot of milk. And because consumer expectations have shifted, people rarely find themselves confused. The widespread market presence of dairy alternatives has made these signals easy to interpret. Communities can also adopt a mindset that leans toward education rather than suspicion. When new food technologies emerge, like lab-made casein or non-animal whey, synagogues, youth groups, or kosher agencies can offer informational sessions, printed guides, or small announcements that explain how these products work and why they are halakhically distinct from real dairy. This lifts the mystery surrounding them and reinforces that Marit Ayin concerns are manageable through knowledge, not avoidance. Positive education helps ensure that when someone sees cheese in a meat restaurant, their instinct is not confusion or skepticism but awareness that a range of safe, kosher-approved alternatives exist. Another powerful tool is communal normalization. When pareve dairy-like foods become familiar, Marit Ayin concerns naturally diminish. This has historical precedent across centuries. What once needed visible marking becomes ordinary once consumers know what to expect. Precision-fermented dairy, in particular, may soon become so common that confusion fades as quickly as it did with soy milk or plant-based burgers. In that environment, Marit Ayin transforms from a potential barrier to a guide for how to communicate clearly during the transition period. And once the transition stabilizes, the halakhic pressure relaxes organically. It is worth remembering that Marat Ayin is not meant to obstruct innovation. It is meant to protect communal understanding. When the community understands the materials, the prohibition does not apply. This gives Jewish law remarkable adaptability. It means that as food science grows more sophisticated, halacha can respond with simple, practical measures rather than defensive restrictions. It means that new technologies, especially those that offer ethical, environmental, and kosher advantages, can be incorporated seamlessly without undermining the integrity of halakhic practice. What emerges is a picture of Marat Ayin that is constructive rather than prohibitive. Clear labeling, thoughtful presentation, light touch education, and the slow normalization of new food categories form a toolkit that empowers communities to enjoy the benefits of innovation while maintaining clarity and halakhic confidence. The goal is not to treat every dairy-like food as suspicious, but to recognize that clarity creates comfort and comfort encourages participation. In an age where dairy, meat, and everything in between can be simulated with remarkable precision, Marat Ayin remains relevant, but its application becomes smoother, more positive, and more grounded in practical solutions. The tradition continues to honor the importance of appearances, not by resisting technological change, but by guiding communities to navigate it wisely, transparently, and with optimism.